Welcome to Dark Character Profiler. Take a deep dive into the background and personalities of villains from books, video games, manga, and comics. Psychological analysis of some of the most deviant and heinous characters of all time. Now, here's Fulcrum.
Welcome back, Dark Disciples. This is part 2 of our deep dive into the mind of Mannimarco. Last episode, Lotus of Doom helped us trace his rise from gifted mage to the cold architect of the worm cult. But today, we go beyond the grave. We'll exhume the evidence of his atrocities, peel back the layers of manipulation and madness, and deliver a final psychological reckoning for the Lich King of Tamriel. This is no longer just a legend. It's a descent into corruption, cruelty, and the hunger for godhood. Enter the dark and don't look back. So, for the personality side of things, we're going to do things a little bit differently than previous episodes. And this time, we've got some comparison to actual historical figures. And I thought it would be cool so that people can, compare and contrast. So I'm going to actually skip those for just a second. And essentially, his personality is, he seeks political and military power. He pursues godhood and omnipotence. He sought personal power through esoteric means. He's a shadowy cult leader seeking ultimate domination. He uses his knowledge for direct conquest. He's deceptive, cunning, potentially a megalomaniac, and he's very tyrannical.
That's quite a laundry list of personality traits.
Yeah. So now I would like to discuss some comparisons to about 4 historical figures. And the first one we're going to talk about is Aleister Crowley, who was a cult leader and mystic from I'm assuming that's when he was born, 1875 to 1947. So both Aleister Crowley and Mannimarco are pretty highly intelligent and influential in occultism. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. From what I know, I tried to look up a little bit on the people that you are going to go through, just so I could have some basis, because some of them I was like, oh, I've never even heard of this. It seems like there's some definite ties, which makes me wonder if this was some of these might be influences to the writing style behind creating Mannimarco as a villain.
Potentially. I mean, I don't know if they've ever outright said, oh yeah, he's, based on these people.
Right.
But I mean,
it's a trend to the series to mimic real life in a lot of ways. So, it wouldn't seem out of the realm of possibility for sure.
Right. Both of them sought esoteric knowledge and personal power. Crowley gathered followers and created his own spiritual order, much like Mannimarco and the Worm Cult. And they both demonized mainstream society. So, with Mannimarco specifically, he wanted to be able to do whatever he wanted with necromancy.
Yeah, no moral restrictions. Don't be a normie.
Yeah. Come follow me over here.
Exactly. And the allure of you have basically uncapped potential for power, very easily can, corrupt people. It's just when you're given the option of you can follow these rules and you can probably make something of yourself or whatever. It's hard to convince people a lot of times when it's just okay, well, if you do it this way, you literally are only stopped by your essentially lack of ability. Anything's on the table. So the ceiling for power is so much higher when you don't have any type of moral compass.
Oh, yeah. So the next person I wanted to talk about is Grigory Rasputin. He was a manipulative mystic and political player, and he was during the time of 1869 to 1916. And I think I found with him, he had the most kind of comparisons with Mannimarco. So Rasputin rose from humble beginnings to become the advisor to the Russian Tsar at the time. While Mannimarco didn't necessarily come from humble beginnings, we don't
It's
know
hard to
that
tell where he came
far
from.
back. Yeah, we don't know that far back into his, like, we don't even know what he was like as a child. But he also would manipulate leaders like Abner Tharn in ESO, which Abner Tharn is one of my favorite characters, even though he was kind of bad at first.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's less overtly evil.
Yeah. I mean, he gets better later on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So they're both actually known for being manipulatively charismatic, like very. And I can definitely see that in Mannimarco. He has this sort of charisma that allows him to get into these higher echelons, essentially.
Yeah,
Like,
and I mean, he has all he has all his followers. The worm cult doesn't populate itself. So clearly something he does has an allure to bringing people to his side.
And I mean, he wouldn't be able to have gotten so far into the upper echelons of, say, being one of the emperor's advisors if he wasn't, very charismatic.
Yeah, for sure.
So they're both corruptive influencers, definitely, for sure. Mannimarco specifically corrupts mages with necromancy, essentially building up his worm cult in that aspect. And apparently they were both difficult to kill. Rasputin survived multiple assassination attempts, similar to Mannimarco's repeated returns throughout the Elder Scrolls series. And who knows, we might see him again.
Yeah, we can't even guarantee that he's gone yet.
Yep. And then the next leader that I wanted to compare him to was Vlad the Impaler.
Woof.
Yeah. He was a ruthless ruler and fear tactician from 1431 to 1476. Both of them ruled through fear and brutality. I feel like I see fear in Mannimarco more so than brutality. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the fear aspect definitely seems like that's, with the emphasis on the undead and worms and stuff like that, and just like the seedy underworld style of things. And like, he tends to live in crypts and all that. It's definitely got more of the creep vibe going on than just brutality. That's not as much his MO. It's, even though he's, definitely, as we've gone through, a pretty morally ambiguous character, there isn't really a goal of just like, oh, I just want to be evil for the sake of evil. It's just, I don't want any restrictions to what I'm doing.
And I want ultimate power.
Yeah, so it's not really just like, I'm just trying to be cruel and brutal for the sake of cruel and brutal. It's just kind of like, well, when that happens, it is what it is.
Yeah. So this one's kind of a contrast between the two. Vlad was known for impaling his enemies to display his power.
Yeah.
And Mannimarco, in order to display his power, he used undead thralls as his army. So he would raise them through necromancy and pretty much boast his power that way.
Yeah, and just a note on like Vlad, that has got to make a rough like dining hall when you have emissaries come and to, kind of scare them. You have people impaled around the room. It's like, that has got to just be an awful experience.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I would definitely be terrified.
Yeah,
I
I
would
think I'd
probably not want to go back.
really just kind of give that message and get the hell out of there.
Yeah, right. And so going back to a comparison, they were both legends in their own time, and potentially Mannimarco's time might, continue on. Who knows? Um, and they both had exaggerated stories of dark powers spreading across the land. But I would say Mannimarco's are not really exaggerated.
Yeah, when you have the potential for like real magic in the series, it
Yeah.
can definitely make it so that it's like, okay, well, you don't need legend if you can literally reanimate the dead.
Right. And you're aligned you're like the right-hand man of one of the most diabolical Daedric princes in all of the games too.
Exactly.
And everyone knows it.
Yes.
Okay, and then the last person that I wanted to compare him to was somebody by the name of John Dee. He was a scholar and occultist during the time of 1527 to 1608. Apparently, he advised Queen Elizabeth I. That's pretty up there.
I was going to say, right in line with having the connections to royal, political stuff.
Yes, and Mannimarco advised the rulers of Tamriel, such as Abner Tharn, who was very high up there, the emperor himself. Oh God, what was his name?
There's so many.
The one from ESO. The one he betrayed.
Oh, Varen Aquilarios. No, that's the mage. I just totally screwed that up. I totally botched that one.
They do have very similar
I know.
names.
No, you're right. That's the mage that he was
Varen Aquilarios.
Varen Aquilarios. Thank you.
That's it.
Yep.
So yes, Varen Aquilarios was the emperor at the time, and he advised him and tried to convince him that he was dragonborn when he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately. And they both sought forbidden knowledge, and apparently, I don't know how this works in the real world, but they both worked in necromancy and the occult. Again, I don't know how the necromancy part works. I was going to say,
probably doing your best to reanimate rats.
Right. there were stories of him.
Yep. Brought my cat back.
Right. Okay, so now we'll move on to the evidence against Mannimarco. And this is where it gets fun. I guess not fun for this guy, but
interesting.
Yeah, interesting. And feel free to chime in.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I'll kind of let you just go, and I was going to say I'm happy to chime in with anything along the way that he's got notably worth mentioning.
Right. Mannimarco is a necromancer. He defiles the dead, reanimating countless corpses, using them in warfare, desecrating tombs and burial sites, which is pretty obvious for someone who,
got to get those bodies from somewhere.
Yeah. Even like just wars where they just left the bodies on the ground.
Yep.
I guess. Okay, so next he is involved in treason and betrayal. He betrays the first magical order that he belonged to, using techniques to pursue necromantic power that eventually got him kicked out, essentially. And like I said before, manipulated and deceived rulers such as Abner Tharn and the Empire as a whole. And he also conspired against the Mages Guild in Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion and almost nearly destroyed it.
Right. Plus, right out the gate, I mean, it's not the first time he had tried to, that he was like at odds with the Mages Guild and kind of like,
right,
it would directly benefit him if they did not exist.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, war crimes and mass murder.
As you do.
Yeah. As one does.
Exactly.
He aided, like we talked before, he aided Molag Bal's plane meld to merge Nirn into Cold Harbor so that Molag Bal, under Molag Bal's impression so that he could rule over Nirn. But little did he know Mannimarco wanted to steal his power.
Not quite as a mutually beneficial experience as he was intending.
Right. He led the undead army in Cyrodiil, mass sacrifices, attempted to become a god in multiple games, but mainly in ESO, and I know I wrote Morrowind, but I meant to put Daggerfall. Next, we've got corruption and manipulation. So he created the worm cult, recruited and corrupted mages to necromancy, transformed many of his followers into liches, turned Abner Tharn into a puppet, manipulating the Empire to his own gain. Anything else you want to speak on that?
No, that's a pretty good profile of all the things he does in his free time, honestly.
Right. And then crimes against nature and reality. Became an immortal lich. Again, meant to put Daggerfall, not Morrowind. And he was a lich in, like, a full-blown lich, I guess, in Oblivion.
Yeah, it seems like somewhere around the third era he has become a lich of some type. It happens sometime after escaping from Molag Bal, it seems like. It's just the exact details of it aren't really clear in the series.
Right. He assisted in the creation of the Soul Burst, which is not something that we got really into a lot of detail on, but essentially that is what was going to cause Nirn and Cold Harbor to become one.
Yeah,
so
it was
that,
Molag Bal's plan that he was kind of lending a hand with.
Yes. And that was in ESO or Elder Scrolls Online. And then he tried to usurp godhood from Molag Bal in ESO by mantling, which didn't work out well for him.
Yeah, it didn't go great.
In the least. And then apparently he also not apparently. I guess this makes sense because of his necromancy and everything else that he's done. He essentially inadvertently challenged RK and the natural order of things.
Right, and RK being the god of life and death, so like by not letting people fully ever die, by bringing them back, you're really kind of screwing with nature on that one.
Right. And, you're kind of also screwing with the other Daedric princes who have claim to the souls
of their followers.
People. So, like,
really putting a wrench in a lot of works with that one.
Yeah, like that literally just came to me now. So if you are a follower of Molag Bal and you die, your soul goes to Cold Harbor.
But not if you're resurrected, I would assume, and used as a form of currency in the world again.
Right. That's an interesting take that I literally just now thought of. All right, so that's pretty much it for the evidence. Now, I'd like to discuss the final analysis. So we've got 3 possibilities. Narcissistic personality disorder is the first. The major themes that we see in Mannimarco are grandiosity and superiority. He seeks godhood and views himself as above immortal limitations. Or should that say mortal limitations?
Yeah, it'd be mortal limitations, but like even still, I mean his goal is to be immortal, so.
Yeah. And then he lacks empathy, using and sacrificing followers without remorse. He has fantasies of power and success, believing he's destined for ultimate control over life and death. Again, going back to challenging RK and the natural order of things. And exploitation of others. He manipulates rulers and deceives even his allies.
Yeah, allies is such a weird term for working with him because, again, since there's no real moral code, what has any... Like, why would you think that he would have any allegiance to anything he says or anybody? Because, well, if it could benefit him in the end, it's just, that would be the course to take, which is about as self-absorbed as it gets.
Right. I mean, yeah. He's pretty... I say narcissistic personality disorder is one of, if not the strongest.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's the strongest claim out of all of the... I mean, it seems like there's obviously... very rarely are things so cut and dry that you only fit into one category with something. But I think, to your point, this is probably the strongest claim.
Yes, definitely. The next one would be antisocial personality disorder. So with Mannimarco, the main themes are disregard for the rights of others. I mean, do we really need to
I was going to say, does that even need to be like explained? I feel like that's just literally explained by what he does as a person.
Right. I mean, we've got necromancy.
Yeah, I don't think he's having people sign permission slips to be resurrected.
No. And mass murder so that he can perform more necromancy.
Again, don't think he's probably asking a lot of permission here.
No. Nope. Deception and manipulation. He created his cult. He deceives rulers and betrays former allies. There's a lot of parallels here between antisocial personality disorder and narcissistic personality
Without
disorder.
A doubt.
So a lot of times they can be comorbid, which
Yeah.
means they could be happening, I guess, for lack of a better term, at the same time.
Right, and that's why these aren't really like, oh, you can only be one or the other. You can share traits of a lot of different things.
Oh, yeah. And then, again, lack of remorse, no guilt for his destructive acts, aggression and rule violations, defies mortal and divine laws. So he has no... He just does whatever he wants.
Yeah, whatever benefits Mannimarco and his overall plan is basically totally on the table.
Yeah. And so within antisocial personality disorder, you can be classified as several other things. So with Mannimarco, potentially, he could be classified as a psychopath if you're using Heir's psychopathy checklist. He would likely score high in superficial charm due to his manipulation of others, grandiosity, believing he is a god or should be a god, lack of empathy, no remorse for his actions, and he lives a parasitic lifestyle, exploiting followers and rulers for his own gain, and then even trying to mantle Molag Bal.
Right.
So
you think you can outsmart a god, there's not a lot you probably don't think you can do.
Yeah, no. Within antisocial personality disorder, psychopathy could be a strong contender as well. And then last but not least, delusional disorder, grandiose type. Obviously, grandiosity is a factor that is in both narcissistic and antisocial personality disorders. So he has fixed false beliefs about his power and destiny. He sees himself as a god despite evidence to the contrary. And then he has an obsession with his own importance. His entire existence revolves around ascending to godhood. That's literally in every single game that he appears.
Yep. And it's interesting because
what he's trying to do.
Theoretically, because of this fictional aspect here, it's something that is theoretically obtainable, which is also interesting.
Right. Because, and this is kind of going off topic, but in the Shivering Isles expansion for Oblivion, the player character mantles the Daedric Prince.
Oh, Sheogorath, yeah.
Yeah, Sheogorath. And you become a god.
It's proof that it literally happens.
Yeah. And then the the last section for delusional disorder is inflexibility in his beliefs. Even when defeated, he persists in his delusions of divinity. And that's all we have. Do you have anything you would like to add?
No, I think that really does encompass a lot of the psyche behind Mannimarco and just his up until, the most recent game in the series, being just such a persistent threat to not only, the gameplay aspect of, you need an antagonist to fight in a video game oftentimes, but like
Right.
the writing of the world is just this constant threat of this person who's just like, at any means necessary, bringing himself to being a god. And then like, okay, well, if he ever reached divinity in the series, because again, it's something that could theoretically happen in this world, that's a whole level of problem on top of what you're already dealing with him, which is just such a disturbing thought. And again, he fits so many of these different categories in one way or another, just because he's, again, as much as just he's written as a villain type of thing, there's a lot of complexity to why he acts the way he does, even if the base level is just kind of like a selfish lust for power.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that pretty much sums up his entire character.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, there might be, some things that were missed or some things that might, point to other.
Well, we certainly did have to also condense his storyline as best we could to make this episode at all listenable without it turning into a saga of podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully we gave enough context to provide understanding to his history without boring people with, needless tidbits about every war he's been in and started and all of that.
Right. I mean, because that would be a lot.
It sure would be.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me for this episode.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
And we'll have to plan another one.
For sure.
And that wraps up part 2, Dark Disciples. We've laid bare the crimes, the corruption, and the mind behind the mask of Mannimarco. His legacy is one of undeath, betrayal, and the relentless pursuit of power at any cost. Next week, the tone shifts, but the darkness remains. We're trading necromancers for Wall Street as we profile Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. And in May, prepare yourselves. Hannibal Lecter is waiting, and the doctor is always hungry. Until next time, stay in the shadows. And remember, death is only the beginning. The true power lies in what comes after. This podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. While we use the DSM-5 as a framework to provide psychological analyses of fictional characters, the discussions are not intended to diagnose, treat, or provide professional mental health advice. The interpretations shared are based on hypothetical scenarios and creative exploration and should not be applied to actual individuals or situations. For mental health concerns or diagnoses, please consult a licensed professional. Listener discretion is advised.
Thank you for listening to Dark Character Profiler with Fulcrum. Listen every other Tuesday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Podcasts. Humanity was not meant to live this way. Society is left to the mercy of murderers and cutthroats. Hear Paige Zaplin Dam's epic tale brought to life in an audiobook. For years, Slade had felt secure in the forest. I am from simple, humble beginnings. I was raised in the Ironwood by an ogress, an Anaral. He saw immediately that she was beyond a healer's aid. Even a skilled witch could not help her recover from losing so much blood. Mother? Slade thought he wanted revenge. Instead, he got redemption. A kingdom of ash and steam, The Ogress's Son, a dystopian neo-Dark Age fantasy, narrated by Rich Fraser. Now available on iTunes and Audible. I promise you I will find whoever did this and avenge you, Mother.